Hi, welcome back to my channel. My name is Megan and I have an endless TBR. So it is the very beginning of July, which can mean only one thing for the booktube community. It is time for the mid-year book freakout tag. I had wanted to do this last year, was not really in a filming mood, and while I haven't been on here in a little bit with schoolwork and work sort of taking all of my time, I did want to make a point to check in with you mid-year and see how my reading is going. So most of you are likely familiar with this tag already, and it is a series of questions that help you to give your year in review for the first half. I did wait until the end of June, as that is our halfway point. And we'll jump right into the questions. I will have the questions and the original creators of the tag listed down below. And I pulled these particular questions from Kayla at Books and Lala. I think she maybe added a few or adjusted a couple of the questions to maybe better fit today's booktube community. Here we go. One item of note, if I seem distracted, that's because I have a new cat that we've had for less than a week. We're fostering a coworker's cat for the summer, and he decided to join me downstairs in my filming space. Probably heard me talking, and he doesn't like to be left out. So question one of the mid-year book freakout tag is the best book you've read so far in 2022. And I've read 83 books so far, and I cannot possibly pick only one of them. So some of my favorites include Book Lovers by Emily Henry, Disability Visibility, which is a selection of essays edited by Alice Wong. For my favorite audio experience, I have to go with Full Throttle, a collection of short stories by Joe Hill. And the collection of narrators are Zachary Quinto, Will Wheaton, Kate Mulgrew, Neil Gaiman, Ashely Cummings, Joe Hill, Laisla de Oliveira, Nate Cordry, Connor Jessup, Stephen Lang, and George Goodall. Question number two is the best sequel you've read in 2022. And I'm gonna go with The Last Laugh by Mindy McGinnis, which is the follow-up to The Initial Insult, which came out last year, and Where the Drowned Girls Go by Shauna McGuire, which is the latest installment in the Wayward Children series. Question number three is your favorite reread. Now, I don't normally have a whole lot of time to reread books, but I did have a really nice opportunity, maybe an excuse, to reread The House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune and narrated by Daniel Henning. I participated in a book club discussion for this particular title that a friend of mine was hosting through their job and their library. And TJ Klune actually came to the Zoom discussion after we had some time to talk about our experiences reading it. He came in and spoke about his writing process, The House in the Cerulean Sea specifically, and what's coming up next. So he really got my interest piqued on what he has coming out, what he has already produced, and I might have a project in the works as far as reading some of his backlist titles. Question number four is the genre you've been loving or reading the most. And I don't know that I have a particular answer for that. I view myself as a pretty omnivorous reader. I have read horror, romance, nonfiction of a bunch of different topics, contemporary literature, and as well as middle grade and young adult in a number of different categories just this year. So if I had to pick a favorite, I'd probably say that like horror, fantastical type selections that I've picked up so far. Something like The Fervor by Alma Katsu, which focuses on the Japanese internment camps in the Pacific Northwest during World War II, but definitely puts a horror spin on it, as she is wont to do. So probably horror. And the nonfiction that I've been selecting have grabbed me the most as far as my personal interest. Question five is a new release you haven't read yet but want to. And again, I have two answers for this question. The first they both came out yesterday at the time of filming. And those are The Pallbearers Club by Paul Tremblay. As you may know, if you've watched any of my other videos before, Paul Tremblay is one of my favorite authors. I have his works over in this particular edition from Titan Publishing in the UK. So I do not yet have my copy of the Pallbearers Club, but I've read some of it in the digital version, which Tremblay has stated is not the preferred format, especially with the advanced reader version of the digital experience. So I'm trying to hold out for my physical copy. I can't wait to read it. The other one is called Patricia Wants to Cuddle by Samantha Allen. And this is another sort of campy horror novel that starts off as women going to this like isolated location to film sort of a bachelor type show that then is invaded by Sasquatch. And it just sounds so bonkers that I can't not read it. Number 6 is the most anticipated release for the second half of the year. And I have two, again, they're both sequels to books that I read last year for different reasons. The first is Amari and the Great Game by B.B. Alston, which follows the events of Amari and the Night Brothers, which came out last year. And this book has been pushed back a couple of times, and I really can't wait to get my hands on the sequel when it's finally published. The other sequel follows up Legendborn, which I do have in physical copy by Tracy Dion. This second book is called Bloodmarked and should be coming out early fall, I think. And I cannot wait to see where these stories lead in these follow-up installments. Number 7, unfortunately, your biggest disappointment, and I would have to say Riley Sager's book this year, The House Across the Lake. I have a coworker that's reading it now and really enjoying it, and I'm so happy for her. But part of what I liked about Riley Sager's works was subverted, was ignored in this particular publication. And since I didn't love his release last year with Survive the Night, I'm pretty sure I'm done with Riley Sager. I'd probably go back to Lock Every Door or Home Before Dark to revisit, but not interested in picking up something new from this author. And number 8 is your biggest surprise. So I'm going to say I was pleasantly surprised by This Tender Land by William Kent Kruger. Kruger's known for crime novels that take place. He has a very long-running series that take place in Minnesota, in very upstate Minnesota, where the weather's really harsh, and we have almost a Midwest noir rather than like a Nordic noir type writing style to it. And we follow these characters very specifically through a space of time, as well as each individual case that they're working. This Tender Land is a totally different story, looking at retelling the Odyssey through the lens of 4 vagabonds, as the characters are known in the novel, 4 children during the Great Depression. And they travel down the Mississippi River from Minnesota to New Orleans is their final goal. And the audiobook was narrated by Scott Brick, and I don't always love his narration, but I found that it really, really worked for this particular story. And he's, a hugely acclaimed narrator for audiobooks. So most of the time, it's just my personal taste. I really liked his narration for this story and for our narrator in this tale. And it really is, it's a full Odyssey, and you can see elements of influence. You can see Kent's love of the area in which he lives and from where he writes, the amount of research that he did on the historical period in which this novel took place, and the locations that he set a number of sort of pivotal events in the novel. And overall, just really, it was a joy. And this was another book that I read for a discussion with my librarian friend, who actually got Kent Kruger to come to the discussion in a similar vein of TJ Klune. So we talked about the book, then he came in and talked about his practice in crafting this novel. I'll say we could tell that he had answered many of these questions previously, but he really was such a charming man that I don't know that it hindered our experience in any way of attending this discussion to hear him speak. And I can probably put links to the discussions with both William Kent Kruger and with TJ Klune. They were posted to the library's YouTube page. So if I can find a link to those and you want to hear from these authors on these books that you may have read and enjoyed, check the description box and see what they have to say. Next up is number 9, which is asking for your favorite new author, whether that's a debut author or one that's new to you. And I read a couple of books from authors that I've been interested in reading for a while, and I read a couple of books by authors that I'd be really interested in seeking out other works by them. So I want to highlight a couple of those names. One is Charlie Jane Andrews, who writes sci-fi fantasy. She has such she has such a joy in her writing, and writes for a number of different age groups. So I read Victories Greater Than Death, which is one of her YA sci-fi. It's a total space opera, and wild in its imagination. As well as Ruby Dixon, who, as you probably know, wrote the Ice Planet Barbarian series. I've read the first 2 books in this series and haven't had a chance to get back to it, but you know, they're popcorn. We know this. There are some elements that folks may want to be cautious of as far as sexual relations, which are potentially non-consensual. But otherwise, these are stories that you can fly through. They're not that serious. You know they're going to end in a particular manner. And I can't wait to get back to the series. After that is Violet Coopersmith, who wrote Build Your House Around My Body, which looks at a Vietnamese American young woman who goes to Vietnam and experiences an absolutely unimaginable stay in this country. There's elements of folklore and history, superstitions and rumors, as well as some really dark paranormal situations that occur. And I could not tear myself away from this audiobook. I wanted to find every moment in time that I could be listening to this audiobook. I wanted to find out what happened and how these threads tie themselves together. We see different timelines, we see different pockets of populations or communities, and to see how it all ties together was masterful. And I think they have one other work that's published, but I'll certainly be keeping my eye out for anything else that's coming up next. And finally, I wanted to highlight an author that you may very well be aware of. He's part of the Rick Riordan Presents line. So this is Kwame Ambalia, who wrote Tristan Strong Punches a Hole in the Sky. And this is another story that talks about mythology, religion that I'm utterly unfamiliar with. And I thought that his explanation of West African folklore, mythology, beliefs, folklore and mythological beliefs, and their interaction with the African-American experience in present day was masterful. And the fact that he wrote it for a middle grade or young YA audience, dealing with topics of grief interwoven in this, it was astounding. And again, the audio was wonderfully produced with the perfect tone. I think it sort of matches what you expect from Rick Riordan Presents. It goes along with like the humor you would find in Percy Jackson, but in a totally different mythological base, which I found really interesting. Number 10 asks for my newest favorite character, and I have to pull again from TJ Klune. I'm gonna go with Joe Bennett and Ox Matheson from the Green Creek Quartet. I read Wolf Song just recently, and it stole my heart. If you hear any cat noises from this point forward, Bruce has decided to join me in my filming space. Number 11, a book that made you cry, and that was Under the Whispering Door. Guessed it, again by TJ Klune. This one sort of caught me off guard. You could hear, knowing a little bit about his background as a person and where some of his writing comes from, I could see how personal Under the Whispering Door was for him. And there was a passage that really took me by surprise. And that's where the tears fell. I didn't dislike the book. I did very much enjoy it, but you do have to go in with a certain amount of caution as far as its discussions of grief, a character choosing to end one's own life, and there are some dark topics, dark conversations that occur within this novel. So then we'll turn around for a book that made me happy, and that was Drama by Raina Telgemeier. This is a young YA graphic novel about middle school students in a musical theater program and sort of discovering some of their sexualities and accepting oneself for who they are, self-confidence, self-worth. And this is an essential read. I picked it up because it occurs fairly frequently on banned or challenged lists of books. And again, it's for this LGBTQ plus content, which is silly, right? Kids need to see their experiences and need to see that what they're feeling is acceptable and not strange or something to be afraid of. So seeing the affirmations that occurred within this novel through the characters and their experiences together, it's heartwarming and lovely. 13 is asking for the most beautiful book I've bought this year or received. And I don't know if it's beautiful, but the cover for Shit Cassandra Saw, short stories by Gwen E. Kirby, is absolutely striking. I can't look away from this cover when I see it on a shelf, on my shelf, on the library shelves. I walk by and I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is a great cover. So I was so pleased to find this in my independent bookstore on Independent Bookstore Day, and it came home with me for my personal collection. Question 14, what books do you need to read by the end of the year? Well, anything that has been released that I haven't gotten to read yet, and anything that is yet to be released that I wanted to read this year. I don't have anything particular in mind. I have shelves and shelves of books that I am interested in reading, that I own, and the library calls to me every day, where pretty much every day I come home with a new one. 15. What is your favorite video or post you've done so far this year? And I've been slow in posting videos this year. I'd really like to get into a rhythm or some sort of regular posting schedule, but between work, where I'm constantly learning new things, and graduate school, my schedule is really hectic. But so far, my favorite video has been my vacation reading vlog, which was not necessarily a vacation, but it was my 2-week break in between spring and summer semesters for school. And I read 5 books that were recommended to me by a Denver Public Library librarian. That's not necessarily my library, but I really enjoyed the selections that they provided, and would definitely recommend you filling out the form and getting a multitude of recommendations from one of the librarians that are clearly skilled in reader's advisory and offering those types of suggestions. Obviously, I will have that video linked in the cards and in the description box, so please check it out. And lastly, question 16 is to name your favorite book community members. So some of my classics, people I watch regularly that I look forward to their videos, my subscription feed is full, right? I love BookTube. I really love consuming book content and seeing how people view different things and what they're reading, how they're selecting them. The people that I get so excited when I see a new video on my subscription feed include Kayla from Books and Lala, Ashely from Bookish Realm, Bethany at Beautifully Bookish Bethany, and Mara from Books Like Whoa. And the new folks that I found this year include somebody that's pretty close to me geographically, and that's Joe and Mary from the Book Buds. Then Kara's Bookshelf, hosted by Kara, is somebody that I've really enjoyed watching this year as she started her channel, and just recently got engaged, got a new house, so big things for her, very exciting, as well as how she talks about books, the enthusiasm she has, which is shared by Elizabeth at Reading Riley, who is pretty well established, but is somebody that I've enjoyed getting to know over the last couple of months of my watching her channel. And the latter two, both Kara, Elizabeth, and I are all redheaded, so I feel a sort of kinship with those folks. It's nice getting to know them through this particular medium. So this is a tag that we don't actually tag anybody to complete. If you've not yet done so and you have a BookTube channel, I'm not sure what you're waiting for. If you liked this video, please give it a like. You can leave a book stack in the comment section, as I'm always talking about a number of books. And feel free to hit that subscribe button if you like what you see. And let me know what your favorite book is that you've read so far this year. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye!